Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with my pal Randy Wang at 5. And tonight at 6 o'clock, stay tuned for the Just Help One radio show and podcast presented by the Union Rescue Mission. I'll be back on the air at 6 o'clock this evening and every Thursday evening at 6 with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission. Richard Newcomb, Vice President of Philanthropy and Social Enterprise, will be with us too. Tonight, special guest Maria Salinas, President and CEO of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, along with more uplifting, inspiring success stories of the Union Rescue Mission focused on solutions to homelessness here in Los Angeles. Right now, it's Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks pulling back today. A disappointing earnings report from Walmart, the world's largest retailer, impacted the market today. Also, a hotter-than-expected jobless claim report. Looks like unemployment lines are getting longer. All this focus tightening on the Federal Reserve's closely watched gathering in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That'll be culminated tomorrow with a speech by the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Fed kicking off its Jackson Hole Symposium of central bankers from around the world. The countdown on to Powell's highly anticipated speech tomorrow. We might get some clues as to what's on his mind and whether the Fed will indeed lower interest rates at their next big policy-setting meeting next month. All this happening as President Trump putting pressure on the Fed, most recently calling for a Fed governor named Lisa Cook to resign. Cook has said she will not be bullied to step down. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 153 points today. The S&P 500 down 26 and the NASDAQ down 72. The Dow's been flirting with record highs this week. In fact, hit intraday record highs this past week. We also saw what's happening in the bond market with bond yields slightly higher at 4.33%. Tech names continue to slide. Looks like the Mag 7 not so magnificent this week. NVIDIA, the Magnificent One, pulling back some more, back to 174 and change, after recently hitting a record high in just the last week or so. On the job front, we did see jobless claims for the week ending August 15th rising to 235,000. That came in hotter than expected. Manufacturing activity rising to its best level seen in 3 years in the month of August, according to the S&P Global Flash U.S. Composite PMI survey. Mortgage rates holding steady at the low point of the year, 6.58% this week, according to the latest report from Freddie Mac. The survey shows the 15-year mortgage declined slightly to 5.69%. Walmart stock pulling back today, capping the week's earnings reports from retail giants. We'll take a closer look at that coming up here shortly. And Bed Bath & Beyond's executive chairman Marcus Lemonis announcing this week that the company will not open or operate retail stores here in, guess where, California, saying the decision isn't about politics, it's about reality. Lemonis said in a statement posted on X that the decision was driven by the fact the company will not be able to sustain operations in California due to higher taxes, higher fees, and higher wages, along with endless regulations that strangle growth, in his words. California Governor Newsom reacting to that announcement by releasing a statement himself through his press office, saying that after their bankruptcy and closure of every store, like most Americans, we thought Bed Bath & Beyond no longer existed. This is quoting the governor's press statement. Governor Newsom's press office said in response, "We wish them well in their efforts to become relevant again as they try to open a second store." Lemonis says, in his words, "We're taking a stand because it's time for common sense. Businesses deserve the chance to succeed. Employees deserve jobs that last, and customers deserve fair prices. California's system delivers the opposite," according to Marcus Lemonis, who's the top guy there at Bed Bath & Beyond. Speaking of retailers, how are retailers dealing with the impacts of tariffs and the hotter-than-expected reading on inflation we got recently at the wholesale level and what that could ultimately mean for consumers heading into the holiday season? I'll talk about that with FRASER Ross, owner of the Kitson stores here in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. You like Saks Fifth Avenue on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills? Well, you might soon get a chance to live there, to move in there. Some big development plans at that site. We'll get an update on what's happening in commercial real estate these days, including also the massive rebuilding of Malibu, the Palisades, and Altadena following the devastating firestorms this year. I'll be joined live later this hour by Jerry Sullivan, National Managing Editor of The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate news site. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, Bitcoin too. Let's bring in top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, the president and chief investment officer, Winans Investments, winansinvestments.com. Ken, thank you very much. I had to take a breath there. So much going on here today, and it's great to have you with us. Also, congratulations on your latest Forbes article. Also, Forbes magazine contributor, author of numerous books. His latest is Investment Atlas 3, by the way, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends. Ken, give us your reaction to the latest market moves here with the Dow trying to kiss record highs this week and actually did make some intraday highs this week, and the tech names continuing to slide.
Well, here's the thing, and it's always interesting when you look at August going into September, it's usually a time where markets begin to reshuffle the deck, so to speak. Leadership begins to shift around. The fact that the S&P is still up 8% on the year, considering how far it had come from, and that it and the NASDAQ are almost even right now, it's not a surprise you're seeing some money getting off the table. But Frank, you brought up a real interesting thing, and I do find it so interesting. The discussions before my interview, which is all about retail. And a couple of things I think that are worth bringing up. That, in fact, very interesting statistic that I read over the weekend, that the Port of Los Angeles actually had a record inflow of freight in July. It was record. It was like never been that high before. And when you hear about all the tariff talk and about empty store shelves and high prices for toys and all this stuff that we heard about earlier this year, none of that seems to be materializing. Now, in the case of Walmart and in Bed Bath & Beyond, I'm gonna address that real quick. If you look at the reports coming out from the various retailers, when you get into the numbers or you listen to their, the earnings announcements and the press coverage afterwards, I think Bed Bath & Beyond, and certainly with Walmart missing its numbers, they are trying to match mandates in labor cost, increases in certain costs in certain areas. And then, of course, they are shuffling where they're going to have new stores. I mean, I don't think it's any big surprise that Walmart is going to stick new stores where there is the growth, and the growth being where people can afford to pay. I mean, this earnings season in retail has been interesting because TJX came out with really good numbers. The stalwarts of retail continue to be these automotive retailers like AutoZone and O'Reilly. These stocks have actually outperformed many of the tech stocks for the year, and they're retailers. So again, I think retail can give you a pretty good clue of what we can expect out of the economy going through the rest of this year.
On there live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. So Walmart getting the attention today. Ross Stores also making news, and right down the line here, anything that is catching your attention in the retail world as far as the equities are concerned?
Well, I mean, I just mentioned, the two that I own both of them, and it's very rare for me to buy specialty retailers back to back, but AutoZone and O'Reilly, you are looking at, here's just an example, AutoZone. Stock is up 29% on the year. O'Reilly's up 31%. I go down and look at the techs. They've outperformed Google. They've outperformed Amazon, Meta stock. Microsoft. Intuit missed its numbers after hours day, so it's down even more. The point I'm trying to bring up, and I think it's, we spend a lot of time talking about tech, as we should, because there's a lot of great stocks there. But I think that the moral of the story is that even in an area like retail, where a lot of people were hearing all these scary headlines earlier in the year, you can find players that are doing very, very well. And at the same time, I would say this, that people who are trying to industry ETF their way through this market are going to have a very, very tough time about it, because a retailer ETF might not do as well as the individual company. So again, another lesson that people should learn from 2025, this is a stock picker's market, not an ETF market, and you need to learn to play that game.
All right, Bed Bath & Beyond now making news, saying they're not going to open any brick-and-mortar stores here in California, and Governor Newsom Basically said, yeah, so what, based on that statement I read just a few moments ago here. And what's your reaction to this? I know you follow this, what's happening here in California very, very closely. And I see one of your Forbes articles focuses on California versus Las Vegas, for example. So give us your thoughts about this latest drama here with Bed Bath & Beyond versus California.
And you're right, Frank. I now, as a former Californian, I now am in Nevada, and I feel I can, to some degree, take some pot shots here. Excuse the pun. Gavin Newsom should learn a thing or two about economics. I mean, for him to not be asking questions about why would a company that is trying to rebuild its brand say that we just cannot afford to do things in California, and instead of coming up with an obnoxious comment, coming back with, maybe we need to go back and revisit our economic policies. My article that I just wrote, which is really dealing with financial service companies, and I'm mainly talking about, the mutual funds and the ETFs and the investment managers, and a very good case in point for many people might not know this, PIMCO, the big bond manager, they're based in Newport Beach. And the gist of my latest article, which is going to be coming out at least on Monday, is talking about that. I literally brought up a point that, the politicians and bureaucrats of Sacramento don't seem to care much about financial service companies. And here, when Charles Schwab, one of the biggest companies in the world, moved their headquarters out of San Francisco to Dallas, they didn't seem to care. It just didn't bother them at all that one of the major players of Wall Street left. And so it's just amazing to me that a politician, that especially with a place that needs as much tax money as California does, that they would be blowing off companies like that, to me, is just absolute ignorance about economics.
On there live with top-ranked money manager Kent Winans. The tech names have taken a hit recently. The Mag 7 names, including NVIDIA, pulling back from record highs, and pretty much the whole group's been down. Ken, is there a rotation happening here out of tech, and where's the money going here now?
Yeah, I think it's just there's definitely some window dressing going on right now. People are taking some money off the table. Let's face it, some of these stocks have had some absolutely amazing runs. And then also AI stocks and the AI theme in general. There's been a lot of questions coming up about how fast are we going to see AI hitting the markets? How soon will basic people be able to use it? I have to tell you a very funny story about AI. A good friend of mine was visiting Vegas a week before last. We were down on Fremont Street, and he was trying to demonstrate to me that his phone, with his new AI app, could identify any song being played by any of the bands. Frank, it was 0 for 10. That thing could not identify the songs. So again, as not to poke fun of AI, but we do have a long ways to go. By the way, going back real quick about the relocation story, a lot of companies in Silicon Valley are beginning to ask some simple questions too. Don't be surprised if you don't start seeing some tech companies begin to relocate as well. So this is a canary. This thing with Bed Bath & Beyond is a canary in the coal mine that the state better start paying attention to. But Frank, getting back on the tech does not go straight up. I mean, there are going to be times when things pull back, and let's face it, it was about time for some of these stocks to take a little bit of a break.
All right, and we're also following crypto closely. Bitcoin hitting an all-time high just in the last week or so, above 124,000. At last check here, it's back down to 112,000 or so. Ken, you have your crypto credentials too, so let me ask you, what do you see happening here in the crypto space? And some also, by the way, this week, some pretty wild predictions on where Bitcoin could go from here.
Oh, absolutely. Well, let's first start with the predictions. I mean, it goes back to, I think about early in my career, and I think about, the roaring 1990s, when we were talking about, as we called it back then, the dot-com stocks and the wild predictions and where they would be. Crypto is going to have a place, and the Federal Reserve having their big Jackson Hole Summit, I guarantee you the Fed and anybody else there who's involved in central banks around the world is going to be talking about dollars and any other fiat currency, gold, and crypto. I guarantee they're part of the Fed speak now, so to speak. But I do think, again, that we all have to remember that crypto by itself is very, very volatile. Look at Ethereum. It's the bucking bronco of the crypto world. What I would simply say is this. You've had a chance now I mean, I look at some of the ETFs that I track that I think are probably a good way for people to play crypto. Something like the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, IBIT. It's pulled back 5% in the month. If you're looking at trying to play it, I think for most people that would make more sense than for a long time I've been promoting, and I do still think for stock pickers is not a bad place to look at trying to own some of the crypto stocks. But you take a stock like Coinbase. Coinbase dropped 21% this month. So you have got to be a very disciplined trader if you're going to start jumping into a lot of these stocks. But Frank, the trend is still up on Bitcoin. A slight break in it, it does not worry me at all. A lot of it does still tie to that relationship with the NASDAQ that many of us are still trying to understand better. But no, I mean, the trend is your friend. The trend in Bitcoin is still up.
All right. What about the other equities related to crypto and Bitcoin? Bullish, for example, it made a big splash last week in its IPO and pulled back a few days this week, and now is back up nearly 7 at 69 and change. We see Strategy, Michael Saylor's outfit, down nearly 7 today at 337 and change. And Bitmine, that's the other one that's been making news because of the run-up in Ethereum, pulling back more than 4 today to 47 and change. ETH, as it's known, Ethereum had that big run-up, Ken Winans, to everyone's surprise, and is now back to around 4,200 or so. What about those stocks that I mentioned, and what about Ethereum here?
Well, I'm going to throw one more in there too, Frank, Circle. I mean, I think we have to pay a close attention to what's going on in the stable coin world as well. Here's the thing. Ethereum had such a huge run back up from the depths that it had in April that it was not a surprise, again, to see some money just simply being taken off the table, people taking some profits, saying, hey, I don't want to start giving it back. The one thing I would say, and I don't know if many people know this about IPO or what we better know as initial public offering shares. The syndicates that launch these offerings, it's usually a group of investment companies. There is an obligation for them to make a market in those stocks for some period of time. It's typically 6 months to a year. So it's not a surprise to see that some of these new stocks, when they pull back, they find a base. They find a point where buyers come in. I think, and it's not market manipulation. I know some people might construe it as that. It is trying to stabilize the market in new stocks. So again, I would just simply say, keep an eye out on these new companies, these IPOs, a pullback in an initial public offering, 4 or 5%. That's not out of the question. If you want to own these things, you want to buy them on the dips. I think if we've learned anything else from crypto land, buy the dips. Don't necessarily chase the rallies. And I think that if you're committed to having in your portfolio, by all means, look at these things on pullbacks and be willing to at least maybe step in with a partial position. But hey, Frank, one other quick thing I want to bring up. Don't turn your back on the seasonality of the market like I talked about earlier, August through September. September, even in bull market years, is a goose egg. It's literally flat on average in my statistics. So again, the volatility through August and September, is a good time to rebalance and reposition your holdings.
We see the home builders coming to life recently, and the defense names also in the spotlight, given all the geopolitical concerns. Any specific places here, Ken Winans, where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, it is really funny that you talked about the home builders, because the home builder ETF for iShares is actually up 8.7% for this month alone. That's directly tied to stabilizing of the mortgage area. But Frank, there's one area that, again, it's amazing to me how people don't even talk about it. It's the utility sector. When I look at the older companies, I have my own stock index. The one area of the market that's doing the better than all of them, it seems to be the utilities. And we keep forgetting that AI and crypto mining and expansion in all these other areas require power. And all the talk about, moving from alternatives to nuclear energy and all that, you're seeing this shift happening in the utility sector. So one thing I would tell people, for those who are ETF people, go look at XLU. It's the iShares Utility Index. It's actually up 13% on the year, and that's including the fact I think it has a 3 or 4% dividend. So it's the boring tortoises of Wall Street are not always the losers, And I think utilities will continue to be a good play throughout the rest of this year.
All right, terrific, Ken. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon. That is top-ranked money manager Ken WINANS, the president and chief investment officer at WINANS Investments at winansinvestments.com. Also Forbes magazine contributor, so look for his article coming up very, very soon. And author of numerous books, including Investment Atlas 3. And also, most importantly, he's host of Winning with WINANS, heard every Monday evening at 6 p.m. right here on your favorite station, 790 KBC. Ken, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. Take care.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways we go now on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues. 790 KBC. Stocks pulling back today on hotter than expected jobless claims report. Unemployment lines getting longer again. Also, Walmart coming out with a disappointing earnings report. Walmart shares moving lower by nearly $5 back to 97 and change. Walmart, the world's largest retailer. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 153 points, selling at 44,785 after making a run for a record high earlier this week. The S&P 500 down 26 at 6370, and the Nasdaq down 72 at 21,100. Both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 recently hit record highs in the last week or so. The volatility index moving higher today by 6%. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates out there, at 4.33%. Gold hovering at 3,383 and change. We see Bitcoin pulling back from its recent record high, which was above 124,000. Bitcoin right now at about 112,600. Ethereum, ETH, as it's known, at 4,255. And Doge at the moment at 22 cents. And now the latest news in 790 KBC.
Welcome to NFL Flag.
Are you ready? Yeah! Are you ready? Yeah!
No matter who you are, lace up your cleats, smear on your eye black, step out on the field and chase something. Chase a goal.
Let's get it!
Chase the big time.
Get that, ladies!
Chase rings. Chase gold medals. Chase all of it. It's all up for grabs now. NFL Flag. Chase something. Visit NFLflag.com to find a league and start the chase today.
YouTube personality Benny Johnson has cracked the code on a new era of newsmaking.
And, you know, we have some major members of the White House team that will be joining the program. I know it makes you uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable. But, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you just got to dive right in and say, well.
It's a new cultural landscape.
This is the proper messaging. Thank you. Let's rock and roll.
The Benny Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here. 790 KBC. Retailers in focus on Wall Street today. On Main Street, let's talk about what's happening on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. You like that big Saks Fifth Avenue building there? Well, you might get a chance to move into it at some point. That building was built in 1938, and it looks like the Beverly Hills Planning Commission recently voted to approve a redevelopment plan, which involves the rehabilitation of that historic Saks Women's Building and the construction of 4 new mixed-use buildings. Keeping track of all of this and everything commercial real estate these days, including the massive rebuilding of Malibu, the Palisades, and Altadena. Joining me live now is Jerry Sullivan, National Managing Editor of The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate news site. Jerry, thank you very much for taking the call here live with us this afternoon.
Oh, it's my pleasure as always, Frank.
Wonderful to have you with us. And take it from the top on this Beverly Hills redevelopment plan for this historic building. Tell us what we need to know about that.
Yeah, our senior editor, Lauren Schramm, broke this story earlier this week. It looks like the Saks project is going forward. There's going to be, I think, 76 apartments, a boutique hotel, some shop space, and a spa. So it should fill out, that's an area of Wilshire that, for all the glamour of Beverly Hills, it's on the southern edge of the Golden Triangle, but had been a little bit spotty in recent years. It's right around Wilshire and Camden, and I think there's a lot of hope that this will fill that out and give a return to vibrancy for that stretch of Wilshire.
Certainly, that's going to be a big deal if all that goes through. It looks like the Beverly Hills City Council still has to give it its final blessing, right? But it looks like looks like it's on track for that to happen.
It does look like it's on track, and I think Saks Global is the developer. And interesting that they're developing it away from their traditional retail base right? It's going to be a limited retail presence and much more the mixed use of residential, hotel, and with the spa.
That is very interesting. Repurposing a retail space for housing. What about what's happening with other commercial properties? A lot of talk about maybe converting office space into residential. Are we seeing any meaningful movement in that direction here?
The conversions right now, I'm not seeing too many that are, actually near or at hand. Some other big projects in Beverly Hills. One Beverly Hills, they just got clearance to eventually set up a special district that could issue bonds for infrastructure that then the developer would pay off. But that's for that big development that would include an Amman Hotel. Next to the Beverly Hilton, between the Beverly Hilton and the
Waldorf.
Waldorf, yeah. And so that looks like that's cruising along. Meanwhile, downtown, still sort of trouble. I see that One California Plaza, now the lender is trying to get a receiver on that. It's in default for $300 million. That's one of the big Bunker Hill towers. So, a tale of two cities there on the commercial side.
When we last spoke, Graffiti Towers made news. The ocean-wide plaza project, according to your reports, had two potential bidders. Any updates on what's happening there with Graffiti Towers, the unfinished $1 billion tower project in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, right across from Crypto.com Arena?
Well, it's still a case of sort of incremental, I guess, progress, you would call it. The two bidders are, I guess, one from offshore, one domestic, and we haven't learned too much more than that. In fact, we're going to send a crew out there, I believe, next week and get some video done, and let's kind of set that scene, and we'll have something a little more to refer to besides the pictures you send me every time you drive by, Frank. So we'll add to that.
I'll be there again tomorrow, by the way, so you'll have another update by tomorrow morning. So, every time I go by there, I send Jerry Sullivan photos or even video of that unfinished project there. Nothing happening there at last check, so we'll see what's happening there first thing tomorrow morning. But we have not learned the names of or who's doing the bidding here on that project?
No. So far, we know that Mark Tuchinski, the Collier's broker, is on the job with that one, and no, we have not learned any more about the would-be or potential bidders.
On there live with Jerry Sullivan with The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate site, and of course the rebuilding continues slowly, painfully slowly, in the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. Give us an update on what's happening from your standpoint.
And it does seem to be painfully slow in the overview. Now, underneath that, I think we're starting to see things loosen up or maybe speed up. And we spoke, I think last time we spoke, there had been 9 lots that sold in Malibu to an unidentified buyer. And we've, our reporter Kerry Hamanaka broke the story identifying the buyers. And it's a couple of wealthy New Zealander brothers. They have a toy company, Nick and Matt Mowbray, and they've made a good deal of money in the toy business and other consumer goods. And now they're moving into development, construction, what they refer to as digital solutions, constructing walls on site, that sort of stuff, and using digital printing for some of the interior, countertops, things like that. So they just bought 9 lots in Malibu that had been burned out. And so this is interesting. There's some speculation they may be using this to sort of, test the concept of some of their development project or products, and deep pockets. And it bought in, apparently, some of the sellers didn't want to deal with whatever regulations involved with the coastal conditions, building seawalls and everything else, and decided just to sell the lots off. These two were willing buyers, and you can see they have a deeper reason than just building a home. There's I think there's some strategic purpose beyond simple ownership here.
And it seems that Rick Caruso's Steadfast LA effort seems to be the most cohesive and right now taking the leadership role in the rebuilding there. Is that your impression? And what can we expect from that?
Yeah, that would. I think that's accurate. But when you think about it, it's a little bit stunning that a private entity is taking the lead here. I still don't get the sense of civic, I should say, public sector leadership, and I don't think there's really a sense of a plan. So we're seeing. Yes, Mr. Caruso has done a great deal, and now these two entrepreneurial buyers in Malibu may, address a piece of this or a portion of it. But it seems awfully piecemeal. I don't see the civic plan, the civic spirit behind it, at least on the LA side.
Jerry, thank you very much for that comprehensive update as always. That is Jerry Sullivan, National Managing Editor, The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate news site. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Hey there. I'm Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast. I help people make the smartest money decisions possible because let's face it, money's too important to wing it. From investing strategies to economic trends to savvy travel, lifestyle design, and beyond, we're in this journey to financial independence together. Remember, you can afford anything, just not everything. So, afford anything. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. The big retailers out with earnings news this week. What's really happening with retailers? Let's go right to the source now. And joining us live now is the owner of the Kitson and Kitson Kids stores in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, Fraser Ross. Fraser, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for having me, Frank. Glad to be on again.
Wonderful to have you with us here, and want to find out how our retailers dealing with what everybody's been talking about, the impact of tariffs, the hotter-than-expected reading on inflation at the wholesale level, and what that could ultimately mean for consumers heading into the holiday season. Are we going to see empty store shelves, eye-popping prices? Give us your view of things here at the moment.
Well, we're in retail. We're not in manufacturing. So it's a different business for us. The manufacturers might have to take some hits and keep their prices lower and incur those costs. But, I'm seeing invoices now from these manufacturers, and they put on the bottom of the invoice shipping charges and now a surcharge for the taxes. So they don't want to get their prices, what they really should be, to see if the consumer is going to buy it. But the problem is we have to buy more American and buy more local. It is what it is. But, you're going to chase the business, what's going to sell. Like back to school, this the Labubu craze, but we bought Labubu backpacks, and they were the hot backpacks for back to school, and the pens and the highlighters. Chase the business that the consumer wants, because there's always going to be a demand for a certain product. So you have to do that. The shelves won't be empty. The outlets will do well, but everyone knows the outlet prices are, they buy in there. They're not really saving. It's bought for the outlet. So you have to support local business. They're the backbone of the American economy. They're 85% of the American economy, and we have to stop buying on Amazon. Because, Jeff Bezos already had his billion-dollar wedding and on his yacht and everything. The more you feed into Amazon, the more the stores will close. So the key is to go to local and buy as much made in America. And I think a lot of stuff is getting made in America that didn't have to, that is getting made in America that should have been made in America a long time ago. So I think, LA has, I always say, two Christmases. It has Christmas and it also has a summer. Because the amount of tourism in LA is astronomical. People love coming here, even though we dealt with that devastation of the fires. They still love to come here because of the ocean and the glamour in Hollywood. So we've had a very strong summer. It's been very busy. In our Beverly Hills shop, we sell Beverly Hills merchandise that everyone wants to take back with them to prove they were in Beverly Hills. And, the Japanese love to take back little trinkets, keychains, and then the people from Europe want a sweatshirt that says Beverly Hills on it that they, can show to their friends who are there. So I always believe, just watch your inventory and chase what's selling. It is what it is. The kids' business will always be selling. No one's ever going to deprive their kids of toys at Christmas. And I don't think the shelves will be empty. I think that, the restaurant business are having a harder time in LA, I think, than the retail business.
Very interesting. On the air live with Fraser Ross, owner of Kitson and Kitson Kids stores in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. And certainly anything Labubu sells immediately. I guess they had a new offering today, which is getting a lot of attention. I don't know if you saw the story about the head of Bed Bath Beyond and Home. I think they're calling it now, locking horns with Governor Newsom. And
right.
They're trying to come out of bankruptcy and have consciously decided not to open any brick and mortar stores here in California until the business climate here in California turns around. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think Bed Bath & Beyond, they're not selling merchandise as exclusive. They're competing with a lot of other factors, the online business, and they're going back into the business. And, they're selling a lot of big items. They're very big. How do you get it from where you're shopping to your car? We have a store in Malibu we just opened because we had one in the Palisades. We don't have any more. The cars are right there, so they can walk out with big coffee table books. I always say California is very hard because it's all malls and you've got to walk to your car with big stuff and everything. Listen, one of our biggest items right now in the store, and we're selling thousands of it, is Gavin Newsom toilet paper. It was supposed to be a joke for Christmas, and we thought we would end it at Christmas, but the sales just kept going, and they're going and going and going. So, we have an item no one else has, and people come in and buy a dozen at a time, and they want to send it out to their friends all over the state. Face your business. It is what it is. And I think, Bed Bath & Beyond, I don't know if their stores need to be as big as they were before. I think they have to be more edited and smaller, which will help them. The boutique stores do much better than these big boxes. You don't need a big box. And that's why the department stores are. Who's going to the second, third, fourth, fifth floors anymore? They don't need to. They can buy all that stuff online. They don't have to wander up the store. So it's the main store, the main floor business is doing the business now for these department stores, makeup counters and all that.
All right, you were on the air quite a bit during the time we saw the smash and grabs and all that, and you turned to social media to shame shoplifters. I remember.
Right.
What's happening on the shoplifting front these days, and have things turned around now under the new DA Nathan Hochman and so forth?
Yeah, well, for us they have, because you'll be slammed on social media. Your friends will see it, your neighbors will see it, your employer will see it. So they know not to come to us anymore, because that was a very great thing we did. We put them on the holiday windows, and your name we find out who you are through social media. It's not hard to find it. But I think Nathan's doing a much better job. Yeah, he's doing a much, much better. I'm so glad that guy's gone. He cared none about small business. Nathan is doing a great job. Shoplifting has gone down tremendously.
All right, good to hear. Fraser Ross, owner of Kitson and the Kitson Kids stores in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, and Malibu, too. Now, Fraser, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for speaking.
Thank you very much. And recapping the day on Wall Street, the Dow slipping 153 points. S&P 500 down 26. The NASDAQ down 72. Tomorrow's the big day with Fed Chairman Jerome Powell set to give his big speech in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and then the Just Help One radio show and podcast tonight at 6 here on 790 KBC.
Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling take you behind the scenes of one of the greatest shows of all time.
Welcome to oh God, I can't even get it going. Welcome to Talkville, folks.
Where it's fun to talk about Smallville. I don't think you really know what you're doing on a television show until you do a podcast about it.
I've learned so much.
So what did we do again? I don't know. Let's rewatch it and do a podcast so we know what we did.
Talkville, the Smallville Rewatch podcast.
Let's get into it.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.